Coming up on Global Business, service reforms, from healthcare to financial services and the digital economy. The Chinese capital is aiming to further open up its service sector. China-EU relations. Beijing and Brussels mark 20 years since elevating ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership. And a new way to travel. Taking an air taxi in China may no longer be a distant dream. We'll explore how the market is evolving. And welcome everyone to Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong in Beijing. We begin our show with Chinese Premier Li Qiang's meeting with French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna in Beijing on Friday. Premier Li said bilateral ties have developed steadily this year, injecting certainty and positive energy into the world. China is ready to work with France to implement the important consensus reached by the two heads of state. The two countries should accommodate each other's core interests and major concerns and work together to address global challenges such as climate change, make their comprehensive strategic partnership more solid and dynamic, and promote prosperity and development. Premier Li said China hopes France will encourage the European Union to adhere to the spirit of free trade. Colonna said France is willing to deepen exchanges and cooperation with China, jointly respond to global challenges such as climate change, and play a major role in safeguarding world peace and promoting common development. And Chinese Premier Li Qiang will attend the opening ceremony of the first China International Supply Chain Expo and the Global Supply Chain Innovation and Development Forum and deliver a keynote speech. Zhang Shaogang, Vice Chairman of the China Council for the Promotion of International Trade, said the opening ceremony will be held in Beijing on November 28th. Take a listen.
这是全球首个以供应链为主题的国家级展会。
The first national exhibition with the theme of supply chain has received positive responses from the international community. The exhibition covers a total area of 100,000 square meters, with exhibition areas dedicated to automobiles, agriculture, energy, technology, and healthy living. 515 domestic and foreign enterprises and institutions will participate, focusing on showcasing new technologies, products, and services at key points in upstream, midstream, and downstream of various supply chains.
And Chinese officials say they will continue to develop and enhance the nation's service sector by deepening and building upon recent successes in a demonstration zone right here in Beijing. The officials made the comments during a press conference held by the State Council Information Office in the Chinese capital on Friday. Our Lu Sirui has more.
Officials say the success of Beijing's demonstration zone offers a model for refining the approach to development in the service sector. From September 2020 to September 2023, the demonstration zone in the Chinese capital attracted more than $45 billion in foreign investment in the service sector, comprising over 11% of China's total.
Next, the Ministry of Commerce will work with Beijing together to continue to deepen the construction of the demonstration zone and drive the opening up of the service industry. We will also serve the construction of a new development pattern, promote high-quality development, and contribute to the Chinese path to modernization.
The officials say the demonstration zone in Beijing will continue to upgrade their methods and system to boost market vitality. It would also issue policy and standards that match international benchmarks.
About 40% of the policy measures in the 2.0 plan of the demonstration zone are proposed to reflect international economic and trade rules. In terms of optimizing the institutional arrangements for trade and investment, for example, measures such as promoting the electronic transmission of trade documents and facilitating the import of some remanufactured products are proposed, in accordance with the content of the CPTPP on customs management and trade facilitation.
As part of the commitment to support entities within the demonstration zone, officials say they will enhance regulations and services to safeguard their intellectual property rights. Lu Sirui, CGTN, Beijing.
And for more on Beijing's efforts to further open up its service sector, I'm going to bring in Chen Jiahe, Chief Investment Officer at Novum RK Technologies. Jiang He, thank you for joining us. So what stood out to you from this working plan, which aims to guide Beijing in accelerating the development of the capital service sector?
Hi, Michael. Well, this working paper has been influencing because of its massive scope of coverage for the service sector. It included many important service industries such as telecommunication, healthcare and medical service, finance, culture and education, special business service, all sorts of things. This means China is aiming at building Beijing into a city with strong economy, not only in the traditional sectors, but with the more advanced and developed sectors. With the carrying out of this plan, we can expect Beijing to be a city that is much more productive in the future. At this moment, the per capita GDP of Beijing city is close to 30,000 USD. And with a further leaping forward through the growth of service sectors, we can expect this number to rise to the level at least between 40,000 and 50,000. Meanwhile, in the working plan, the importance of foreign capital and investment has been specially mentioned. So for the funds that are looking for investment opportunities in China's capital city, here is a chance, and I think this is a paper that they should read through.
Yeah, we're going to talk about fund management in just a second, Jiang He, but one of the first things that was mentioned in this working plan was that Beijing is considering the establishment of what's called new national internet exchange centers. So what do these exchange centers, do you think, mean for Beijing's digital economy?
Well, actually, Beijing has a unique advantage with developing the digital economy, and this exchange will bring more benefit to this area. Currently, Beijing has one of the country's internet centers, which is Zhongguancun, and has got many famous universities in the field of internet industry. And it is a headquarters of many famous internet companies like ByteDance, JD.com, etc. So building these exchange centers in Beijing can bring unique advantages.
Yeah. And on financial services, Jiang He, the working plan talks about considering real estate and equity as trust property. So how do you see this potential move impacting Beijing's asset management industry and the city's ability to attract more investors from abroad?
Well, when we look at the financial sector, Beijing has actually got many famous financial companies. You know, most of China's large banks have got their headquarters in Beijing. And the country's largest securities company, the CITIC Securities, is also based in Beijing. And Beijing has got many famous asset management companies. And in recent years, the Beijing Stock Exchange is set up. Just in the past months, there has been a rapid bull market. And the Beijing 50 index has rose by around 40% in just a month's time, which has been headline news in China. And with all these advantages, now comes this working paper aims at growing the financial sector in Beijing. So there seems no doubt for the future growth potential.
And speaking of the future growth potential, I just want to get your overall take in terms of how you see the growth potential, the outlook for Beijing's overall service sector.
Overall speaking, as we have been discussing, Beijing has a very strong foundation with many service sectors like internet, finance, medical service, etc. And this working paper is just given more support to all these service sectors. So we can easily tell the growth potential of these sectors in Beijing. And with the growing of these sectors, which are more value added, more green, and provides better paid jobs, there is also a lot of help to the GDP growth of Beijing city, as well as the growth of per capita income.
All right, Jiang He, many thanks for your thoughts on that. Stay with us. We're going to come back to you in just a moment. Oh, China-EU relations were in the spotlight at an event in Brussels marking 20 years since the signing of a comprehensive strategic partnership. China says the two sides have witnessed more examples of cooperation than differences, and bilateral ties have a strong impact on the global economic outlook. Our Rebecca Bunton has more from Brussels.
Officials gathered in the heart of Europe to discuss relations between the EU and China. Their complex relationship has long involved both elements of cooperation and competition. Today, against a challenging geopolitical backdrop, delegates at the forum said both aspects are here to stay. But there have been many positive developments in the 2 decades since the EU-China Comprehensive Strategic Partnership was launched.
Since then, China-EU relations have prospered, with close exchanges and dialogues and enhanced levels of cooperation, which has brought tangible results to both sides.
The theme of Thursday's discussion was 20 years on, what's next for EU-China relations? Mr. Kong said that there are more examples of cooperation than differences between both sides, but those differences need to be addressed.
We hope that the EU and its member states should not develop their relations with other countries at the expense of China-EU relations or at the expense of China's interests.
The EU and China are at odds over some matters, such as trade, although they are key economic partners with $2.5 billion of bilateral trade a day. China is concerned about the EU's launch of an anti-subsidy investigation into imports of electric vehicles. And the EU has been trying to reduce its economic dependence on China, including for crucial commodities.
We see China as an essential partner, but also, depending on the areas, as a competitor and a systemic rival. We are major economic partners. Our bilateral relationship is integrated and important, and as major economic actors, the course we set has a strong impact on the global economic outlook.
There was also agreement at the forum that cooperation between the two global players is required to help address some of the main issues that the world faces. These include climate change, conflict, and the need for development. The consensus was that engagement and dialogue between the EU and China is essential to strengthening the long-standing relationship. Rebecca Bunden, CGTN, Brussels.
And in other headlines we're tracking at this hour, the Chinese Foreign Ministry said on Friday that the country will roll out unilateral visa-free policies to 6 countries: France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain, and Malaysia, on trial from December 1st this year to November 30th next year. Japan passed an extra budget worth around $88 billion on Friday, aimed at helping households cope with rising costs of living and supporting businesses to boost investment, that's even amid concerns over the country's worsening finances. And data from Germany's statistics office showed the economy shrank slightly by 0.1% in Q3 compared with the previous 3 months. Germany has been among the weakest economies in Europe this year, as high energy costs, weak global orders, and higher interest rates have taken their toll. And still to come here on Global Business. A new way to travel. Taking an air taxi in China may no longer be a distant dream. We'll explore how the market is evolving.
The world economy as we know it is about to change. Global Business reports highlight emerging markets, developing countries, and dynamic sectors worldwide. We feature top analysts and newsmakers to provide perspectives on every facet of business. From an on-the-ground perspective, we provide you with balanced and objective assessments. Fast, sharp, and insightful. Global Business, only on CGTN.
All over in the United States, the roads and airports were jam-packed ahead of this year's Thanksgiving. Karina Mitchell checks out the ongoing travel rush from New York.
Well, the travel crush is on in America, and if you're planning to fly either domestically or into the United States, the Transportation Security Administration says Wednesday is one of the 3 busiest days during the Thanksgiving holiday travel period to do so. In fact, the TSA estimates it will screen a record 30 million passengers by November 28th. That's next Tuesday. But the big question is, will people get to their destination and their Thanksgiving meals on time, given jam-packed airport and bad weather expected to hit in about 24 states?
Severe storms already created havoc in parts of the South, including Mississippi and Louisiana. And in the Northeast, rain and gusty winds, along with ice and snow in some areas, made traveling conditions more challenging. So far, only a handful of delays here at LaGuardia, but that didn't stop travelers we spoke to from getting to the airport early.
So you're here several hours earlier?
Yes, like 5. I don't want to say 5.
Yeah, I just had to make sure that I gave myself enough time because, I was aware that, it's a crazy busy day in terms of the airports and everything, but got to do what you got to do.
For one passenger, it wasn't just about getting to the Thanksgiving dinner table on time. He had more on his mind.
My cousin decided to get married on Thanksgiving, so I had no choice. I don't know where we're having Thanksgiving, maybe an Applebee's or something, but hopefully the wedding will make up for the travel and we'll have a good time.
American roads will be jammed too. The American Automobile Association, better known in the U.S. as AAA, predicts more than 55 million Americans will be traveling 50 miles or more from home. That's about 80 kilometers. AAA says most people, around 50 million, will be traveling by car, and about 1.5 million are expected to jump on a bus or train or take a cruise.
Now, the TSA says it expects Sunday to be the busiest travel day of the Thanksgiving holiday. It expects about 2.9 million passengers to travel through security checkpoints at the nation's airports. And if you're planning to drive, AAA suggests making sure to leave early in the morning or after 6 p.m. to beat the worst of the traffic. No matter what, remember to pack your patience. At LaGuardia Airport, Karina Mitchell, CGTN, New York.
Well, Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, is the biggest single-day shopping event over in America, but consumers are likely to be more cautious this year after a long period of high inflation. U.S. shoppers could spend an average of $875 on holiday purchases. That's only $42 more than last year, marking the slowest growth in 5 years. That's according to a survey of over 8,000 adults conducted by the National Retail Federation, a U.S. retail trade group. Annual consumer inflation in the country has now fallen below 4% in the past few months, but analysts do point out that many shoppers are still under heavy financial pressure after a period of high inflation last year. Well, anyone who flies is familiar with the trend: add-on fees for everything from extra legroom to priority boarding, pushing the final cost of a flight ever higher. Now, there's a theory the airlines employ a business strategy designed to make passengers less comfortable just so they can spend more on upgrades. Our CGTN's Anita Soledad Perez has more.
Want to move up from the C or B boarding groups to the first part of the A group? It's easy with upgraded boarding starting at $30 per flight segment.
There are many options for upgrades on a flight, but all these extras cost money. Flyers are opening their wallets to pay extra for what used to be the minimum, like seat selection, meal service, or baggage allowance. Airlines know there's money to be made by upselling extras. One Columbia Law School professor famously described his airline strategy as calculated misery, making flying so dreadful that customers are willing to pay more to escape it.
If I could pay $1,000 US to just get rid of all different barriers to getting on a flight, I'd pay $1,000 US.
I look at it like it makes sense. If they could charge this, if they could charge it, they should, you know?
Are you paying a lot to travel with the entire family?
Yes.
And how are you making sure that all of you are seated together?
We pay for seating.
And it works. Revenue from these extra fees are expected to reach a record $118 billion this year. But this calculated misery principle and implementation has not gotten noticed by unhappy consumers.
And passengers say fees are getting worse. Many flyers are reporting being unexpectedly charged for checking in at the airport and printing their boarding passes.
It feels like every time you get on a plane, it's like you have to pay you have to pay a fee for everything. Like you have to pay for food, for snacks, like things that we used to get before, like sandwich or something, or like it's almost like it's like a tiered kind of experience. You have the people in economy, you have the people in first class, and then they are now adding different classes in the middle that you could also pay for. So it seems like they're just kind of making it almost worse and even more like unbearable to fly.
I feel like it's a business, you know. Right now, as more people you can pack in a plane, it's better for them. So it's tough. I mean, I'm on the side of business, but on the side as a user, it's hard. It's getting harder to fly.
The issue of fees even made it into this year's State of the Union.
And will prohibit airlines from charging $50 round trip for a family just to be able to sit together. Baggage fees are bad enough. Airlines can't treat your child like a piece of baggage. Americans are tired of being. We're tired of being played for suckers.
But all that torment is not stopping travelers from flying.
We're expecting a 4% increase over last year. It's busy. I mean, the airport is busy right now. COVID's over, and people want to get out and about, and they want to travel.
Proving that the airline fee strategy is effective for the industry and not likely to disappear anytime soon. Mitza Soledad Perez, CGTN, Miami.
And I want to get more now on the holiday shopping season, both in the United States and here in China, and bring back to Jia He, CIO at Novum RK Technologies. Jia He, so given the state of the U.S. economy right now and its near to medium term outlook, what are your expectations for how this year's U.S. holiday shopping season will shape up?
Well, looking from the recent economic figures of the United States, we can see that the general picture is heading toward a positive territory. The inflation has finally been contained after a long period of interest rate hiking, which means the Fed will have much less pressure to raise its interest rate in the next few quarters. The unemployment rate is running at a pretty low level, especially compared with the COVID era. And the recent dropping of global oil price has brought stronger support to the consumption market as the cost per unit has been contained in some extent. So looking for these aspects, there can be expectation that the consumption in the coming holiday season will be pretty strong. Currently, there are still the PMI figure and trading data that are still a bit weak. If we can see these two groups of indicators to rise in the future, then we can have even more expectation towards the consumption data.
And Jia He, how's the U.S. holiday shopping season doing compared with China's Double 11 shopping festival?
Well, looking from the data, both the U.S. Holiday shopping season and China's Double 11 shopping days are reporting promising data. But there are slight differences between the shopping modes of these two markets. The U.S. shopping market is more traditional. The main battlefield is taken in things like supermarkets, shopping malls, etc. And in China, while these traditional fields are also important, the internet shopping is taking a much larger percentage. Meanwhile, with a faster rising speed of income as the developing economy, the consumption pattern of Chinese consumers are much more volatile compared with the US market, which means for businesses operating in China, they have to react even quicker to all these changes. On the other hand, as the world's leading consumption market, the items consumed in the US shopping season is really taken as leading indicators, and it is worthwhile for the Chinese companies to learn from these experiences.
Okay, Jia He, we're going to leave it there. Many thanks for your thoughts on all of that. And Jia He, CIO at Novum RK Technologies. Thank you, Jia He, as always. Well, in the not too distant future, the daily commute could look very different compared to today. Innovative transportation solutions look set to transform the way travelers around the world make short trips between cities and islands. That's as air taxis finally take off.
Ready for the air taxi? Recently, several expos on aviation and transportation have offered some exciting new possibilities for global travelers. At the recent 6th session of the CIIE, this fully made-in-China electric vertical takeoff and landing plane was unveiled to the public.
Now this type of aircraft can accommodate 5 people with a cruising speed of 200 kilometers per hour and a design range of 250 kilometers. Our electric system, flight control system, composite materials are all independent developed in China.
With a total weight of 2 tons, it can hold 500 kilograms of cargo for short distance transportation, for example between cities and islands, shortening a 2 to 3 hour drive into a 30-minute flight. The company Vertaxi is going to settle a deal with a U.S. top player in the sector to achieve more in the global market. And during the first Aero Asia show in Zhuhai this week, an all-electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle called AR300, designed for urban mobility, attracted attention. Designers say that people could commute to work using this aircraft in the near future, with just a short run required for taking off and landing and a maximum cruising speed of 100 kilometers per hour. Also, the entire cockpit can be disassembled quickly for freight transport. In October, the Civil Aviation Administration of China jointly announced a plan with related departments to allow pilot operation of electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, By 2035, new general aviation equipment characterized by unmanned and intelligent technologies will be commercialized on a larger scale. The future has already arrived. Xu Yi, Hou Jing, CGTN.
And in the age of the internet and connectivity, our cars are getting smarter every day. Some vehicles may soon play a much bigger role in our lives than just the daily commute. Our correspondent Edith Tianshan visited the Los Angeles Auto Show to see how some of the most popular concept vehicles might shape our lifestyles in the future.
Connecting cars to smartphones allows drivers to carry out some daily tasks, but Ford has partnered with content creators to take connectivity to the next level.
To be able to stream and output all of this content to the masses, to your people, to your fans, you need a good setup. You need a good computer, webcam, equipment, and everything. And Ford and Full Squad said, hey, why don't we take what people normally have in their rooms, you know, isolated, doing their thing, on the road.
Featured in this year's LA Auto Show, the so-called gaming van is advertised as the ultimate mobility tool for content creators who are recording and streaming on a regular basis. With microphones, cameras, monitors, and high-speed internet connection, the van has already gotten a lot of attention from social media stars.
And this is like an amazing idea. It's like, why not, you know, take what you do in your room on the road, maybe link up with some of your fans. A lot of these creators are bigger than most A-list celebrities. So taking this like we did a small sample going from LA to Vegas, but realistically you could go on a full-blown US road tour with this.
Outdoor enthusiasts are also in for a treat as this year's auto show introduces SUVs that are now more capable than ever before. Several brands are showcasing new concepts, with their pleasure vehicles also serving as spaces to camp, cook, eat, or even sleep. But this new all-electric travel trailer could change the RV culture.
Normally, if you want to access electricity, you have a relatively small battery in an RV, and then you need to run a generator, for example. It's loud, it smells bad, right? So this, you know, the battery will last you up to a week. And that's what we call boondocking, where you don't have access to electricity or any other infrastructure. You can be out in the middle of nature by yourself for a full week. The solar will help replenish the battery, and you know, you can run all your appliances and air conditioning, and it just makes life very comfortable while you're there.
Aside from charging itself through solar panels and an additional electric car it's attached to, Pebble can also be remotely controlled and moved around by a smartphone. For those who are looking for greater freedom of movement with vehicles that also serve as living and working spaces, this year's LA Auto Show has certainly stepped up the game in making vehicles more connected and functional than ever before. It is Tianshan, CGTN, Los Angeles.
And that's going to do it for this edition of Global Business here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wong here in Beijing. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next time.